So today, we're talking about the San Antonio housing crash.
The big crash.
The big
The one that
crash.
everybody keeps telling us about. That
Yes.
We're not seeing.
Yeah, we haven't seen it.
We're going to kind of give you our opinion of what we're seeing in the market now. Since we sell so many houses, we can kind of tell you what our boots on the ground feels like. And then some stats that I think will help really give you an idea of where this market is actually heading.
So something interesting happened this past weekend. Our first listing that we had on the market actually didn't get an offer this past weekend, I should say. That was a first in, well over a year?
At least,
yeah. So, we've definitely been seeing some things change in the market. We've not seen like this crazy crash that everyone keeps on talking about. That's not what we're talking about. But what we have seen are, fewer showings. We're not seeing that frenetic pace. I remember last year there was one listing that had literally like 30 people lined out the door waiting to get in there. And even not too long ago that was happening. I mean, at least 2.5 months ago I was showing a house, I saw that. We're not seeing that right now.
The only time I'm seeing that is if you have a great house priced properly.
Yeah.
That you will still see. But
100%.
a lot of these other homes that are just, they're nice homes, they're just nothing super special about them.
Right.
There's more inventory.
Yeah, there definitely is an uptick in inventory. I'm totally seeing that. I'm with you on that. I think what's going to start happening is that sellers that were able to just put, I'm going to say it like it is, junk on the market and it would sell, I don't foresee that happening.
Or like those homes that have something weird about it, like an odd floor plan or backs up to a busy street or maybe like a telephone tower. Those ones aren't going to go like they did in Q1.
Right.
But there's a big reason for this, guys. You've got to think about interest rates. Interest rates is a big part of this. Back in January, February, and beginning of March, we were still in the 3s. Mm-hmm. That is still cheap money. And even if you have a home with a road behind it, it's still cheap money. If you decided to not live in it and rent it out, it's still a good buy.
100%. I agree with you.
Because you've got 30 years fixed, low, cheap money.
Right.
But now money's getting more
exactly.
expensive.
Yeah, I mean,
and
we're
it's
creeping
gonna
up to
change things.
a number in which, person's buying power has definitely decreased a lot. Mm-hmm. So it's funny, the people that had fallen in love with like a $600,000 house at their old rate, now that's looking more like what, say 450-ish, maybe 475.
Yeah.
Assuming that they don't have the cash to be able to, pay up to that price point, make a difference in their financing. So I think mentally they're having to overcome all of these homes that they were falling in love with, just not acting on at that time, and then now saying, oh my gosh, I can't get the 3,000 square foot home. I'm having to look at 2,500 square foot, or I can't get the home that
the location.
Yeah, the location that they want and everything else. I mean, there's an interesting dynamic of what's going on in the marketplace.
But you also have to think a lot of buyers are getting priced out. Like there were buyers that qualified in February, March.
Right.
Now, even if they lock their rate, what is their rate lock? 30 days?
Yeah.
45 days?
Yeah, depends. We're on that.
But once that lock is up, they're out. And it was funny, I was showing a client the other day a house, and there was another couple in the same house, and they must have overheard us talking. And she comes up to me and she goes, are we going to find a house in 30 days? And I'm looking at her like, I don't even know who you are.
I'm not your agent.
I know. And her agent was just staring at me like a deer in headlights. And I'm like, well, if you listen to your agent and put in a good offer, there's a chance. And she goes, well, in 30 days, my rate is up and I can't buy.
Wow.
And so there are people that are going to be priced out of the market. So which means fewer buyers, fewer competition, fewer offers, which is going to open up some opportunity. Let's talk about the opportunity. So I got an FHA buyer under contract last week, which is a miracle.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I think for a lot of people who are VA, FHA buyers that don't have a lot of money to bring to like closing costs or, waiving appraisals and all that, there's actually a window of opportunity right now as I'm seeing this little bit of a shift where, buyers can actually negotiate with the seller and say, hey, I'll pay you full price, but I can't pay closing costs and I need maybe a little bit in concessions, and they're able to actually get a home. So there is that right now.
I agree. I think sellers, the unfortunate thing is the data that we hear right now, that data is actually old. So it's going to take time for the mindset of the seller that was so used to all the news and the craziness and the hype and everything that was going on to adjust to what the reality is.
And let's talk about that for a minute. So, we've been on this upward trajectory for so long. We've been pricing, whatever sold last month. Well, we can add another 10, 20 grand to that. But we're not seeing that right now as things are starting to cool off a little bit. But sellers, like you said, their mindset is still, we should be able to get more.
Right.
So what are they doing? They're putting their house on the market at a higher price.
Right.
And they're not selling.
They're not selling. It's going to sit there.
So
Yeah.
what happens? They either take their house off the market or they adjust the price. So when you see price change, it kind of goes into the frenzy of, oh my gosh, we're seeing all these price changes. Well, it's not necessarily because no one's looking at them to, buy. They're just overpriced.
They were
And there's
overpriced.
other houses that are better or,
Right.
at
Yeah.
the right price.
I
So-
personally just did not subscribe to that, overpricing the property.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt that we just needed to price it per the data that was in front of us at the
Mm-hmm.
time. And anyone that got extra money on the sale, well, hey, that was like the icing on the cake. That was the extra candle on the birthday cake.
Yes.
Especially now, I had a listing appointment that you did get to join me with the other day, and I told the seller, I said, look, we need to price it properly with the expectation that it sells at this price. If it happens to sell for over that, then great, that's awesome. And once I educated them about what's going on, they were fine with it.
Right.
They just needed to see what was in front of them.
Well, and it's also going to go back to the kind of house. I mean, if you have a single story, 3-car garage with a pool,
That's sure.
that is what is on 90% of people's lists. It's
Right.
going to sell. You're going to have multiple offers. But if you have one that might have stairs going up or a steep driveway or there's something quirky about the house, there's other houses out there that
Yeah.
buyers are going to look at.
Yeah.
So you might even be better off lowering your price and getting it into a different market to
Right.
create that frenzy. Because those, of course, there's always going to be another level of home.
100%.
So it's right now, it's still strategy, guys. It's
It is.
still a strategy. You just have to think, we're just having to be on top of it and think ahead.
Right, and I think that, it's really good to have that strategy. So few agents, they'll just take a listing and just grab it and run with it, which you could do all of last year. But now, because we're seeing so much of a change, you really do have to have a methodical strategy and then be able to adjust quickly. Like, you have to be
Right.
paying attention to what's going on
Yes.
and, hopefully get some feedback and whatnot, but just kind of seeing what the trends are.
Yeah.
Because the moment another house comes on the market that might be a comparable to that one, and if they're priced under you, guess what? They just set the market.
And no matter what market we're in, there's always going to be folks that have to move.
Yeah.
And they're always the motivated seller sets the market.
That's right.
And so whenever you've got a motivated seller, that's going to be the home to watch. And that's the one you either see it go up in value because they priced it properly, or it goes down because they priced it a little too aggressively.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly. So, I'm very curious to see what the next couple of months bring. Obviously, we're about to get kiddos ending school. Typically, this is when you start seeing more, well, I don't want to say typically, probably a month ago is when historically you see more houses on the market.
May is,
I think
usually-
we're going to start hitting them right now and seeing, of course, we have the military moves.
PCS.
Yep, PCS right around the corner as well. That's going to start happening. Of course, San Antonio is a huge military city. I do agree with you. I think there's going to be some great opportunities for that VA buyer and also the FHA buyer.
But I don't think it's going to be for long. And
No,
here's why.
I agree.
This is the part that a lot of people are not talking about. And every market is different, but we can speak to our market. And so it's kind of mind-blowing to think, but Bexar County has 668,223 homes, right? So when you're looking at that amount of homes, you go back and you look, okay, well, how many of these homes are paid off? How many of these homes have loans? So when you're looking at the seller in this market, did you know that 45%, and this is kind of staggering, of homeowners don't even have a mortgage in Bexar County?
Wow.
45%.
That's very much in line with the national number as well, now that you say that. I remember hearing a national statistic. Nationwide, it was like either 40 or 44%, right around there. So wow, that's actually in line with the national number. So
And the ones-
almost half
of
the homes in San Antonio are paid off. Very different than 2008,
Very
through
different.
10.
Yes.
And I don't know why people don't get that. I mean, those are people that were over leveraged back then.
Right.
Right now, people are sitting on a lot of equity.
A lot of cash too.
Wow.
Well, and another part of that is, of those homes that are not paid off, 20% of those have an interest rate under 4%.
Wow.
And then 20% of those homes have an interest rate under 3%. So who's going to give up their rate? I mean,
Yeah.
we got in at a 2.8 on our house. Do you think we're moving? I'm
Yeah.
not giving that rate up. We actually
Or
talked
you
about
might
it.
move, but you want to keep the house.
Right.
Because the money's so cheap.
Yes, exactly. And then let's talk about new construction, because we always think, okay, well, what about foreclosures or new construction? That's going to solve our inventory problem. This is what's a little scary, guys, because of the inventory that we have that's already low. When we look at new build starts, or let's just say permits pulled, in 2021, last year, Q1, quarter one, there were 2,160 permits pulled. Okay, you would think there would be more this year, right?
Right.
There's actually less. This year, there were 1,804 permits pulled.
For Q1.
Which is 356 less homes that they're starting this year than they started in Q1 last year, which is, it's scary.
Wow.
And then I heard somebody say, wow, the foreclosures are coming up. There's going to be foreclosure. They're increasing. I went and checked the foreclosures. Do you know how many there are?
How many?
91.
91.
That's going to
foreclosures.
solve about a week of
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
So,
Wow.
or maybe a day.
Wow.
But so when you just look at inventory in every direction, you've got all these sellers that don't have to move.
Right.
They've got all these other sellers that have a great, rate. Why would they move to a higher rate
Right.
and pay more? And then you've got less homes being built,
Right.
no
This
foreclosures.
definitely,
So-
this is a perfect storm.
It is a
This
perfect
is a
storm.
perfect
So
storm.
it is definitely going to be interesting. I think what saves us here in San Antonio, and there's always going to be life happens, right?
Sure. Always.
But I think right now, if you can get into a house, you know what they say, better to buy real estate and wait than wait to buy real estate. I think that this is really one of those times, as scary as it is and as high as prices are, but when you look at what's coming down the pipeline, here's another thing. Millennials, right? Aren't they supposed to be bigger than the baby boomers?
Baby boomers,
Okay.
yeah.
Gen Z's right behind them.
Yeah. No
And
kidding.
they're not much smaller.
Right.
And they're not going to do what the millennials did, which is they had 2008 PTSD from what their
Right.
parents
They
went
did.
through.
Yeah.
Gen Z didn't.
Yeah.
So they're going to want to go into home ownership.
A lot quicker
and
than
so that's
millennials.
going to be more demand,
Right.
and supply is still going to be. We haven't catched up from 2009.
No, the reality is
Yeah.
the builders have not been able
Nope.
to catch up. I read somewhere where they're talking about, just from a building perspective, it's going to be at least 3 years before home, builders can catch up to the demand, and that's if they catch up to the demand.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, life happens. There's always a reason that someone's either going to buy or sell a house.
Right.
We all know that.
Moving out of the state.
Yeah, moving out of state, job, divorce, marriage, kiddos moving out, people having kids. So there's always a reason, irregardless of what the rate is.
Right.
However, the rate is still not a bad rate. We're just so used to these super, super low
Low
rates.
rate.
But guess what? People can always refinance as well.
Yeah.
That's what, it's so interesting how quickly people forget things like, oh, you actually have an option. So let's just say rates dip. And my opinion is that they will dip. I mean, of course, the government's really trying to pump the brakes quickly on what's going
With
on with
inflation, yeah.
inflation and everything else. Totally understand that. I personally think rates will drop down again. So people will have an opportunity to refinance if rates drop. So it's like, hello, people, you're not stuck with that rate forever.
Right. It does feel like it though,
Mm-hmm.
because we as humans, we react to markets and we're
Mm-hmm.
emotional, where, that's why this data is so important, because what we think and what we know is to be true is
Yeah.
very different. And so I think this is really good information today. But if you are looking to buy or sell a house, especially if you're in the buy side, there is a strategy for you, same on the sell side, but we would love to connect and help you with that purchase or sale. But do you have anything else to add for today?
No, I can't wait to have a conversation about this in 3 months.
Yeah.
I want to go back and look at this video because that's just how quickly the market's moving. So
Yeah.
I have my theories. I'll save them for 3 months from now.
All right. Thanks so much for watching.